I'm an expert at unbuilding. Let's see if I can actually get it back together as quick. That's really the true test. All right, today's the day to open this. Last episode, pulled the motor. And then after I finished the next day, sure enough, my new Cummins R2.8 showed up. Thank me, because I waited for you guys to unbox it. You gotta compliment Cummins on the proper marketing here. Look at this, like that's like a proper crate. That's how a crate should show up. I've had crate engines show up before, they never look that nice. All right, grab some quick tools and let's pop this thing open and we'll make a nice little fancy montage unboxing video, you know. All right, so for those of you not familiar with the R2.8, it is a 2.8 liter diesel engine that is turbocharged and made by the good folks over at Cummins. If you don't know who Cummins is, I don't know where you live, but they've been making diesel motors for like 99 years. They even used to race in Indy back in like the 30s or 40s. Yeah, they make somewhat indestructible engines, which is one of the reasons why we picked this engine. But the other reason we picked this engine, a lot of you were asking me about this last time, like why didn't we just do a 200 or a 300 TD, which was the stock diesel engine that came in these. It's because that engine never came here in the States, which means finding parts for it's a pain in the ass. By the time you get one shipped here, they're actually not that inexpensive compared to what these cost. When you factor in that you're not getting a brand new motor, getting something used, and even if you rebuild it, it's still not a modern brand new diesel engine. Let's talk about what this one has. It's got 161 horsepower and it has 310 foot-pounds of torque, which is the most important part, because for anyone who knows the difference between horsepower and torque, you know that like torque is kind of what you drive, especially when doing things like digging yourself out of mud in something like this. It's where you want the torque. It also has a 2-year warranty, which is pretty rad for a crate engine, considering that like jabronis like me are installing it and somehow they trust us. It also is the only complete crate engine that you can find on the market for a diesel engine. So, I mean, when I say complete, it comes with an alternator, it comes with a power steering pump, it even comes with a serpentine belt to run all of that. It comes with everything already built in. Water pump, everything in is already on here. You even got your ECM, your full wiring harness. You've got your water separator. You've got a bunch of different sensors. I mean, even the lines you're gonna need for doing your intercooler piping and stuff like that. It comes with everything, short of a battery and some diesel to run it. Yeah, and that's it. The only thing that this is missing from my application is the inside cooler, AKA air conditioner. Because while I don't have AC in most of my vehicles, the one that I really like it in is this. Because when you're in the desert at 110 degrees, it's nice to pump that AC. And also that makes it herd approved. You know how he likes AC and everything. That's pretty much it. Look how nice and clean this is. Oh, I like how everything's glossy. I mean, it even comes with a flywheel. Yeah, and the cool thing about this engine, like I said, it's a modern diesel. It runs great. It's pretty simple. I know that there are people out there who are already starting to tune these things and getting a lot more power out of them. People question like, why not just do a 4BT? I know many of you will complain and go into the comment well about why the 4BT is better. That's great. But if you actually look at stock numbers back to back, they're equivalent. That's a 3.8 instead of 2.8. There's also some suspension stuff and other things we'll be taking care of over the next couple episodes, as well as redoing my roof rack. I spoke to the boys over at Voyager Racks, which is what this is. This is like an original Voyager from back in the day. And I wanted to kind of build a little bit more of a custom one that sat lower, had a little bit more of a halo to protect the lights. So they're working on building one of those. Hopefully that shows up and we go from there. So the goal would be to have overall a lower rack, so it just brings everything down. So I can save 2 or 3 inches on center of gravity, but also clearance. All right, so I took the roof rack off, not just because it gave me a little bit more room to work on the lift, but I'm getting a new one built. While the thing's on the lift though, I wanted to point out a few things. Before, some of you guys were like, you guys should lift it. You should put it on bigger tires and so on and so on. This thing actually is already lifted 3 inches. So it's got some Safari Guard springs, and it also has Safari Guard 3-link setup for the front. That, along with some different radius arms in the back that have a little bit more of a kink in them. It's got some 16-inch NATO wheels, which are like NATO, as in, you know, the military operation, peacekeeping thing. It's got Toyo 265/75 16s on it. It even has disconnecting sway bar links. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it allows you to disconnect your sway bar when you're off-roading, so your sway bar is not trying to keep the axle in a position that you don't want it to be in. And right now I've got some old Fox shocks. Those definitely need to be replaced. Those have seen better days. Old Man Emu steering stabilizer and Terra Firma steering and drag bars. And those are nice, they're just stronger. I just have blown out the previous ones, so I replaced them with those. Pretty much it for suspension. The 3-link setup though from Safari Guard is definitely pretty radical change. The previous setup was very different than this. It was kind of like one bar that came down, held. This replaces all of that, and it lets it articulate a lot more than factory. So maybe when this thing's all done, we'll do that forklift thing that all the off-road guys like to do. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is start getting into the transmission. I actually need to pull some stuff out from inside the car. I should put the car up on the lift, and now I gotta take it back down again. I should have thought about that first. All right, took a little bit. Had to start inside the vehicle, unhook everything inside, unhook everything under here. Here it is. It's coming out. I don't know, not really as hard as I thought it would be, but at the same time took, once again, way more steps than I thought it was going to take. Get this thing out of here, disconnect it from the transfer case, get it ready to mate to the NSG 370 trans, and one step closer. Hopefully my parts from Access Industries show up this week. Maybe might be able to get a little bit further along for the next episode. I do realize that to many people, it seems like I've gotten way more done on the Rover in just a few days than I did on the Audi in a couple months. Yeah, maybe, might be true. It's also just unbuilding, and I'm an expert at unbuilding. Let's see if I can actually get it back together as quick. That's really the true test. Oh, that's a pretty big trans tunnel. I don't think I'll have a problem putting the Jeep trans in there. Sweet. Step by step, systematically making this vehicle less British. All right, new day, new parts, and new help. Hey, Ash. Hi. Actually, the other day while I was in Detroit, Ashley got some work done. She pulled the wiring harness through the firewall, which is a huge pain to do. Also remove the headliner so that we could pull the factory racks off. Got some parts from Access. Those are our adapters, some mounts, a few things like that. Also need to tear this down. This is our LT230 transfer case, and this is the R2.8, which is the transmission just pulled out. And this is the manual transmission from Rover, and we're not going to be running it. So, as I mentioned before, we're gonna run a Jeep NSG 370 6-speed, and the reason is that the gearing for it just makes a lot more sense for a diesel. Diesels don't rev as high, so something that has short gearing, like the R2.8, is not as good of a transmission to run because you're going to be at 70 miles an hour and you will be doing like 3,900 RPM or something like that, which is right around redline. The NSG 370 trans, which is out of the Jeep, way taller gearing, but also has a really nice super low first, which is great for crawling without having to actually get into the low gear on the transfer case. The guys at Axis make an adapter. We'll open that up in a second. That'll convert the NSG to the Rover transfer case. Separate all this out now and go through the axles, see kind of what condition they're in. Hopefully we get our transmission this weekend. Next steps of that will be actually mocking this all up and building some motor mounts. But let's actually open up what the boys over at Axis sent us. We actually got our stuff. Some of it from Axis. They didn't have everything in stock, so we had to order some stuff through Advanced Adapters, who also carries Axis parts, but it's all stuff that the Axis guys make. Seriously, if you're doing the swap, you got to go look, because those guys are probably the #1 people out there right now making parts for the R2.8 swap. And they've been super helpful. Kevin and the whole crew over there. Don't know I could have tackled everything and understanding what I needed to put together without them. They're the ones that recommended the Jeep Trans, which I wasn't even thinking about putting a Jeep transmission into my Rover. It's certainly some type of blast for me. All right, let's open this stuff up. All right, so here's most of the vital key parts. This is our bell housing adapter to the Jeep transmission. One side mounts to the engine, other side mounts to the bell housing. Got a flywheel adapter. Also have, it's kind of, even though it's a manual transmission, this is sort of a flex plate, and it's really just used to be able to run the starter off of what the actual Cummins starter is. Next to that, we've got our transfer case adapter. So this adapts the Jeep transmission back to the Rover transfer case. And as you can see, it's actually a really nice piece of kit from the boys over at Axis. It also includes this little stub. This is what also converts the spline on the Jeep transmission into the spline that goes into the Rover. Additional hardware. Focused motor mounts, which are designed to cut down on some of the vibration that you get out of a diesel engine. These guys put a lot of engineering and thought into how those should work. So I figured we'd go with those instead of fabbing up our own. And they also were kind enough to include these, which are some prototype engine mounts that they've built. So as you can see, they gave me a recommendation of where they think this needs to be cut, but they've only used these in Defenders. They've never installed one in a Disco. A little bit of learning there. Over here, we've got probably the most important piece of kit, the bracket to hold an air conditioning pump. Other turbo bits, and then just a mix of different adapters to be able to run different gauges, things like that, as well as AC adapter. Air conditioning is crucial in this vehicle. Unfortunately, we don't have the transmission, so right now we just get to look and stare at all of our Christmas presents. Whee. The excitement is extreme this time of night. We'll tear this down. It's probably gonna be it for this episode. Let's get to work. Well, we made a little bit of a mess, but it's out. That is the LT230 transfer case. While we took this off, Ashley actually fixed our handbrake cable. Ran the handbrake cable inside because we never had a handbrake in here, which was super fun on hills, right? Yeah. With a manual transmission. This is actually the drive shaft brake. So instead of the handbrake going to the rear brakes like you normally have on cars, this actually stops the drive shaft from spinning. And if you have your center diff lock locked, it actually will lock both front and rear drive shafts. So it'll actually lock all four wheels of the car, which is kind of nice when descending hills and doing things like that. This is the Land Rover transfer case, and this bit here will eventually mount like this. This will go in here, like that, and then the Jeep transmission, the output shaft, will actually come right into here. Mount that up now, but I actually want to clean this thing off. And one of the other things that's going to have to change is that on the D1, the actual shifter to shift from low to high, that's what the transfer case does, and also to lock the diff and unlock the diff, we're controlled by these linkages. So these linkages were moved by this, which is the shifter controller, in and out and over. While I could try to build a linkage system to mate that, the D2 actually came with a cable system, which will allow me to put the control wherever I want it inside of the car. The shifter on the R380 actually sits as far back on the transmission as possible, and then is actually cooked a little bit back behind the transmission. And from all the photos I've seen of the NSG 370, it actually sits like right here, which is where this shifter is. So I'm probably gonna have to actually put the transfer case shifter behind the actual gear selector. We'll figure that out later. That's it. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Don't really have much left to do till the rest of our parts show up. Hoping that that happens in the next day or two. We can have a productive weekend. That's really it. Well, guys, thanks for watching another episode of Carcane Rehab. That's a wrap! 16 days until the Land Rover needs to ship off to SEMA. Let us know if you think we'll actually get this thing running and driving by SEMA.